morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, and today is Monday, the 15th of October, middle of the month. So a lot of activity out there in the ocean for those that are on their way, and of course there'll be a lot of activity in port for those that are going to make use of the opportunity this week. So a lot of weather to go through, and I probably will, actually what I'll do is just brief you on what's happening out in the ocean at the moment. Some good reports, and thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to start probably in the north. Obsession are at 24 and 173. They have east, southeast 25, 60% cloud cover, and a southeast 2 to 3 metre swell. Then there's Heatwave at 25 and 174, and they have got 2 to 3 metre swell, easterly 21 to 24, 90% cloud cover. And then we have Flying Fish at 26 and 177, and he's got east, southeast 23, gusting 28, with rain squalls in one direction, and well, the swells are coming from two directions. He's got a 2.5 metre south-southwest and a 2 metre southeast. Barometer, of course, with that high is rising 1028. And just a reminder, folks, before we left, and you are going to get some energetic conditions en route, what we used to do before we left is take all the door aids off and cap them. You will find your cap somewhere stashed on board. Make sure the door aids are off and capped, and if you can't find the caps, then at least turn them away from the water. And we also taped our forward hatches. Just gave up trying to, well, we sleep actually fairly well forward, so we didn't want any dampness. We taped good old duct tape around all the forward hatches.
Except for one centre hatch. Except
for the centre hatch, of course, which might need to be opened at some stage. All right, so just a reminder of that, and it's a little bit too late for the Flying Fish to remember that, isn't it, Jeffrey? All right, let's go on to Zen, who has not got a radio, but from Zen's, Peter's wife, we have him at 27 and 175 with southeast 18 to 22 and a 3.2 metre lumpy sea. So he's actually ripping along at 8 knots. He's a Veneto 43. It's going really, really well, single-handing there. So that's what it is. Here, quite different. It's absolutely a beautiful morning. 13 degrees, okay, so that's not very beautiful, but the high, 1033.1, still rising, very big high, which is why you guys have all got that strong winds on the outskirts. We have no wind whatsoever. Southwest, the boats are pointing, but it's an absolutely blue sky day, absolutely lovely. I'm just going to do a pause in case there's any messages for me. I need to just amplify. Nothing heard. All right, let's go on to a little bit of news. Probably a lot of you have forgotten that we are starting early now, but the sun is coming south. It's absolutely glorious at the end of the day. We're on daylight saving now. Oh, and by the way, just a reminder for you folk that are on passage or about to go on passage, there is I don't know what the net's called. I'll call it the going home net in the evening. 6209 frequency, 6209 if you want to have a chat or just listen to other people having a chat. It's 8 p.m. Fiji time. I have no idea what time Zulu that is, but it's 8 p.m. Fiji time for those of you that have come from Fiji. You'll know what that time is. It's not very wonderful weather in Fiji at the moment. Whistler report 12 to 15 southeast at Muscat, 90%. Tell you what, it's not very nice at New Caledonia either. Good morning, Jan on Alcyon. He's gone across to Hengeni on the north coast there. 25 knots, 100% cloud cover and showers. So 1014 up there. Very, very sporty out there. Let's go to a little bit of news from the weekend. It was actually a good weekend sports-wise for New Zealand. The New Zealand Silver Ferns finally had a win against Australia, 55-44. And in league, New Zealand beat Australia 26-24. That was fairly unusual too. Dame Valerie Adams is expecting her second child, beautifully organised so that she can get fit again for Tokyo 2020. She's 34. The baby's due early next year, but she still wants to have another shot at the Olympics, and Tokyo is on 2020. Spain, this is just for our Spanish listeners, and we do have a few there. I'm not sure why I'm telling you this, but there's a big argument going on in Spain about tortillas de patat. Now, that's a very famous dish in Spain, and there's a competition each year to see who can do the best tortilla de patat. But evidently there's a big argument as to whether it should have onions or not. And the gurus say that although you can add onions to this, it's then not a tortilla de patat.
And I would agree with that.
And David would agree with that. Evidently, that tortilla should just be potatoes, olive oil, egg, and salt. And you have to properly fry the potatoes and have really juicy running eggs on it. I bet you didn't think you needed to know that.
No, but if you have onion, you're hiding the solids.
Yes, he doesn't like his onions, as you can tell. All right. Google turns 20 this week. It's hard to believe that it's only 20. I can't actually remember now a time without Google, and I can't imagine how we would survive without Google. But anyway, it's only 20, and so far you can still Google something without paying for it, although I'm sure that will change one of these days. But anyway, that's the story there. I can't read my writing as to what I'm trying to tell you on the next one. I'll go on to the fact we'll have some water information. The poor lass that got attacked by a shark in the Whitsundays about 3 weeks ago, unfortunately, has lost her leg. They caught 2 tiger sharks. They don't know whether they were the ones or not, but they caught and shot dead a 3.3 metre tiger shark and a 2 metre tiger shark. So I don't know whether they were the ones or not, but they were the token gesture as a response to that attack. Actually, David wants to say something.
No, regarding shark attacks and whatnot, I wanted to say this some time ago and I forgot. But those of you that are in New Caledonia, this is for New Caledonia people. A lot of you go to the northeast side of New Cal. We've done that many, many times. It's quite an interesting place. But watch out there. The visibility oftentimes is not very good. And we do see quite a few tiger sharks in that area. And one time it really scared the bejesus out of us. A really, really big tiger came under the dinghy, bigger than the dinghy. And anyway, I just thought of that when Tricia mentioned these attacks. So back to her.
I actually thought it was a really lovely looking shark with the stripes and all. But anyway, there was in fact a tiger shark attack down in the Catlins. Now for those non-New Zealanders, the Catlins are way down the bottom of the South Island on the eastern side, a beautiful wild area, absolutely gorgeous. And a French woman survived a shark attack a few days ago. She was body surfing, must have had a thick wetsuit on down there. It's damn cold water. Anyway, it clamped onto her leg and she managed to wrench it off. So she was a bit lucky. And up further here at Hot Water Beach, which is in fact hot water in the Coromandel, a man died while swimming over the weekend. So you can see that summer has sort of come here. Going to Canada now. Marijuana goes on sale in Canada this week at pharmacy outlets and for adults. So if you have a problem, they're still talking about it here. I think it got approved, and I'm not sure what happened for pharmaceutical use too, because there are a lot of people who have said how useful it is for some of the pain that they are getting from one source or another. The Invictus Games start later this week, and Prince Harry and the Duchess Meghan are heading to Sydney, and then they're going on to a tour of the South Pacific and New Zealand. So those of you in Fiji and Tonga may notice that there will be a bit of sprucing up for that. Oh, and I've now read my writing. This was really for David in case I forgot to tell him. But Mr. Trump is going to award the Medal of Honor this week to a Sergeant Major from a Marine Sergeant Major from Vietnam, 1968. He did some incredible rescuing of wounded Marines and got them to safety, himself under a lot of fire at the time. So it's now been recognised some 50 years later. That was the year of the Tet, and in fact it happens to be the year that David was there, so I wanted to remember to tell him. Because we annoy each other with bits and pieces, he works on his weather in the lounge in the morning, and I sit myself in bed and read the news. So I have to make notes to myself when I need to tell him about something. Anyway, that's about it for news this week. Well, today anyway. I know that some of you are very anxious to hear about the weather, and there is, in fact, by the sound of it, a good opportunity this week, and it sounds from what he said that it might be the only one for this October, so you better listen up, folks, and he will also cover the weather for those en route, and I'm not sure whether a heat wave is there, but it looks like you might have an opportunity to do what you want, direct to Picton, but there is a bit of conflict with the models, he's muttering, so keep tuned on that one. But looking pretty good, and certainly looking okay for people who are coming through after the misery of this passage. So I think what I will do is pause to make sure we've got everything. By the way, your emails are all coming through. I also check the YIT site, that's www.yit.nz, but your emails come through. I do not respond unless it's something urgent. I do not respond, particularly for those Iridium people, because it costs you. So unless there's something we need to get in touch with you about, we just assume that you will listen and that you will let us know what your movements are, which of course you're doing. And of course there's folk, about 7 of you I think, at Minerva, and David will cover that particular when to leave as well. So I think with that I'm going to do a pause and see if there's anything we've missed, and then we'll go to the weather. Yeah, sorry about the delay, Ron. I was just putting in my noise cancelling speaker here, which I've forgotten to do. Pilgrim, go ahead. I have somebody in there. Who was it? Oh, Quintessa. Good morning, Alan. I tell you what, we are going to have trouble picking you up. I think what we'll do is do the weather and get to you after the weather. Ron, will you be still around, or are you needing to go somewhere? Over.
Negative, no.
Okay, well, we'll get back to you after the weather, because I suspect it will be a little bit long-winded, and I know there will be people waiting to hear the weather. So I'd like to get started pretty much on time for that one. All right, we're going to move now to the weather, folks, because there's an awful lot of it to get through. After David has finished, if for some reason we have not covered wherever you are, and I'm hoping he will do pauses between the different topics so that you can not get lost. It reminds me of trying to listen to maritime radio to give the weather in the middle of the night, and it's you sort of zone off, and then when yours is being covered, you've been half asleep and have missed it. So I'm hoping that he will do a bit of a pause and let us know when he's moving on to the next one. But here's David.
Well, good morning, everybody. And you know, that is my fear, because we do listen to, we listen to the news at lunchtime. And it's the hour news here. It's really crappy news, I can tell you that. But when they do the weather, I will have to admit, I pretty much fall asleep. And my big fear is that's what you do too when I'm speaking, because I could just imagine, if I'm not in your area of interest, that you probably do zone out. I don't blame you for that. But yeah, that's a fear. Anyway, I'm going to start our analysis this morning, and there's a lot to cover because we've got people that are on passage, we have people that are planning to leave this week, and there is an opportunity. So it's rather important that we cover as much as we can with this. So I'm going to start by looking at the ensemble frogs, particularly the GFS ensemble. Now, to refresh your memories, the ensembles are a very, very valuable tool for looking at future surface conditions. I had some long chats with the head forecaster at New Zealand Met Service regarding this, and they consider it to be an extremely valuable tool. Now, you're aware by now that models use a set of initial conditions as input for the various formulas that they use to actually predict the weather. And each of these models, whether it be GFS, EC, MWF, CMC, the Canadian model, NavGem, the U.S. Navy, BOM, they all have various takes on how they want to utilize the formulas and whatnot. And that's why their reports are different from one another generally. Now, these initial conditions come into the various model centers at least twice a day and sometimes 4 times a day. It's in the case of GFS, it comes in 4 times a day. If there are any errors or inaccuracies in any of these initial conditions, then the whole forecast run, the entire forecast run is going to be in question. And any early error compounds as time goes on. That's the worst part about it. So that is something that we have to be very careful about, and these model centers have to be very careful about. And to the degree that they're successful, they produce what we call skill scores. Now, the ensemble models, what they do is they take these initial conditions and they tweak them numerous times, a dozen times sometimes, maybe even more than that. So whatever it might be, the temperature at 250 millibar, the temperature at 500, the wind strength at 700, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole set of various initial conditions that they use. So they change them ever so slightly, and they make a model run for each change. And then by the time they're all said and done with all these model runs, they come up with their version of the forecast. And that's what we look at when we're looking at the ensembles. And they're most useful for future planning because of that, because we're looking at the big picture here. We're looking at anticyclones, we're looking at lows, that sort of thing. We're not looking at specifics like wind speed and direction per se. We want to see if that high that we think is going to be there is going to be there, or that low, or whatever. So given that many of you are planning this particular passage to New Zealand, I'm going to take a look at the basic ensemble outlook for the next week, and we'll go out to 10 days on this. Now, if you're taking notes, fine. If you're recording this, you can listen to it later. Otherwise, have a good sleep. Okay. Tuesday, we might as well start tomorrow, and that is the 16th. That shows the 1032 high nearly over the North Island here in New Zealand, producing anticyclonic flow all the way up to the islands. As you know by now, you're getting quite a bit of wind up there. By Thursday, the 18th, the ensemble shows the high barely moving, hardly moving at all. The center is just off the west of Upper New Zealand, roughly 1029 millibar, with anticyclonic flow still over the cruising routes. Now by Saturday, the 20th, it shows the high center still there. It's still just north of the North Island at this point, about 1029 millibar, still ridging to cover the cruising routes. Now, just south of the Oz Bight, we see a very strong and large depression forming. Cyclonic isobars range from 110 east, 110 east, and that's the very west coast of Australia, so you don't have to run to a chart, and all the way over to 155 east, which is the eastern part of Australia, a little bit further than the eastern part of Australia. So it's huge. As big as that high is, that's how big this depression is. So that's of note. Now, by Monday, virtually a week from today, believe it or not, the high is still entrenched over New Zealand and still looking around 1029 millibar. We've got anticyclonic isobars that are pushing all the way out to the islands, just like they are now. Now, shifting from that, I am looking also at the blocking forecast charts. And they, in fact, are verifying our big high still over New Zealand all the way out to about the 24th of October. However, soon after that, the cyclonic flow area does move onto the Tasman, and that's going to bring some unwanted weather at that point. So that data is from the blocking forecast people. So that's the big picture as predicted by GFS Ensemble and the people that are bringing us the blocking forecast, and that's generally the NOAA people. So let's now take a look at our ordinary global models for this coming week. And we'll check out sea conditions first. So those of you who are either underway or thinking about it, this is what I'm picking up from this data. On Monday, today, between 20 and 30 south, we're looking at southwest swells coming in at 3.5 meters. And we have wind-driven seas from the southeast, and they may be roughly 1.5 meters. Come Wednesday, the primary swell is still southerly, give or take on that, but about 3.5 meters. And the wind-driven seas are easterly quadrant, about 1.5 to 2 meters. So you can see that's a bit uncomfortable out there. On Thursday, the swell direction is coming from the south-southeast, and they'll be about 2 to 2.5 meters. So they'll have come down just a little bit. The wind-driven seas will be easterly quadrant at that point, about 1 to 1.5 meters. And a few of you have asked about swell period. That data is available too. And regarding the swells, we're looking at about 10 to 12 seconds between peak to peak or trough to trough, however you want to look at it. And that's through about Thursday or Friday of this coming week. Okay, now let's take a look at the winds. So today, Fiji to about 27 south, we're looking at east-southeast, about 25 knots in the mean, and they're going to be higher gusts. Tomorrow, Fiji to about 21 south, 25 to 30 knots, and then from 21 to 27 south, east-southeast about 25 knots, but maybe closer to 20 knots as you get further south, maybe around 27 south. Looking at Wednesday now, east-southeast 25 knots from Fiji down to 25 south. And then we have easterlies down to 30 south, and they'll be about 20 to 25, and maybe a little bit lighter than that. On Thursday, from 25 south to about 32 south, we're looking at east-southeast to east winds, 20 knots. And a little bit later during the day on Thursday, south of 26, 15 to 20. So that's come down considerably on Thursday, late Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 26 south down to about 31. We're looking at easterlies. Now, give or take on that direction, folks. These are true directions, by the way. So the winds about 15 knots, maybe 15 to 20, and they start to back. So by Sunday, northeast to north winds from 30 south to New Zealand, and they'll be around 15 knots, 15 knots. And the wind direction really is a function of your position. So those of you that are to the east of, say, the date line will have different, slightly different direction than those that are west of the date line. So there we have some short-term progs for you. Now, if accurate, things start to improve about Wednesday or Thursday of this week. Now, those of you that are already on passage, I just told you what to expect. Those of you that haven't gone yet may be thinking about going Wednesday, possibly Thursday. Now, long range shows our high by Sunday, this coming Sunday, to be just to the east of the date line, with easterly quadrant winds from Fiji down to 30 south. That sounds pretty nice, doesn't it? Then the winds start to back a bit to northerly quadrant as the isobars curve at the ridge axis. Now, a week from today, next Monday, the progs see the Tasman low in front. We talked about the Bight of Australia showing a big low on the ensembles. Well, it shows up on the global models about Monday of next week. And it, of course, has a front associated with it. But rival New Zealand, for you yachties that are underway, look to be okay, I would guess by then, with north to northwest winds. So that's Monday. So if you get to New Zealand by then, you're in pretty good shape. Now, between Monday and Saturday, the 29th, there are some discrepancies now in the models. There is the possibility of a light trough being about halfway up New Zealand, and that's going to affect the wind direction, but that could very well fade, that particular feature. So we'll have to take a look at that as well. But the main frontal band doesn't look like it'll get here until about Saturday the 29th. So those of you that wait until Wednesday or Thursday would probably be in by that Saturday before that next potential front does get here. Now, as we told you on Friday, this is a passage with no cold fronts. There's a big broad high. A lot of people call it the big fat high. It's very strong. It dominates the entire Southwest Pacific. It stays pretty much anchored in one spot, moves around a little bit, pretty much in one spot. Now, this is not rare, but it is infrequent. And when it does happen, you can be pretty lucky because of the lack of cold fronts. However, you do have strong winds because usually these big highs have high central pressures. And as you get further away from the center, the winds get stronger and stronger. So on this passage, the winds are going to beat you up a bit, but I think if you sail intelligently, you'll be quite fine. Just make sure that you close everything up. Otherwise, everything down below is going to get wet. Now, after Saturday the 29th, that's when I expect this next nasty depression to enter the Tasman and affect New Zealand. The next window is certainly going to have to be after this passes. And that's too far out for me to give you any predictions at all. In fact, we're going to be looking at the first of the month before anything happens. So 1 November, remember, is the start of the tropical cyclone season. So those of you that have insurance worries may want to think about that. So all in all, this is a week for making your breaks if you're so inclined. Now, that's not to say there won't be good windows in November. Oftentimes there are better windows in November, but you really do have to take a close look at tropical depressions. Okay, now we're really running here, so we'll take a quick look up at the islands. Now we've got a lot of cloud over Tonga, all moving in from the northwest, many of them rain-bearing. Reports are rain in Vavau, southeast, light at the airport, only 5 knots. Cloudy, barometer 1016. The Hapais, southeast 15, scattered to broken, and the barometer 1017. And down there in Tongatapu, southeast 15, sky is broken, barometer 1020. So there's pretty good pressure differential amongst the groups there in Tonga. So I would anticipate the winds are definitely going to build. So today, cloudy conditions, pretty good chance of scattered showers up and down the group. Now, Tonga Met has issued a strong wind warning and a heavy damaging swell warning for all waters. So expect southeast winds 20 to 25 knots, rising 30 at times, and this is going to continue tomorrow. The winds on Wednesday are looking like southeast 20 to 25, and virtually the same thing Thursday and Friday. It's plain nasty all week, folks. I hate to say it, but this may still be windy through Sunday, the 21st. So a lot of wind for Tonga for this week. Over to Fiji now, where the pesky trough still lies mainly over the northeast of Fiji, according to Fiji Met. However, I'm looking at the latest satellite loop, and as far as I'm concerned, trough conditions are looking to be virtually everywhere in Fiji. Now, there are breaks here and there. There are wind shadow areas as well. However, it's not looking very good for Fiji. Now, there is a strong wind warning that's been issued by Fiji Met. That's in place for all waters. Southeast winds 20 to 30 knots, continuing tomorrow as well. And with this comes rough seas, as you would guess, and a moderate southerly swell. I think it might be higher than moderate. And poor visibility, of course, and heavy showers. The only radar operational is the Labasa radar, and it does show rain covering most of its coverage area, and this extends to eastern Viti Levu. And I see plenty of returns, so quite a bit of rain, even with just that one radar operational. Now, looking at Wednesday, this is me now, my forecast part of it. Looking at Wednesday, I think east-southeast about 25 knots. There's an area or two of 30 knots. Thursday, a bit of an ease, east-southeast 15 to 20. But Friday, the wind looks like it comes back again, east-southeast to southeast about 25 knots. Just not a good week, folks, for Fiji, just as it's not a good week for Tonga. Over to Vanuatu, where the trough just to the west last night is moving over the group now. Plenty of rain-bearing cloud that I could see on the satellite loop. And needless to say, fresh, strong winds are going to be following all of this. East-southeast about 25 knots. And again, we will have wind shadow areas. The west side of most of the big islands are fairly protected, except where the wind comes rushing through the valleys. But looks like tomorrow easterlies, 25 knots in the southern bits of Vanuatu, 15 to 20 in the northern half, and about the same thing on Wednesday. Easing Thursday a bit, 15 to 20 knots for most of the group. And over to Newcastle, not looking good. A frontal band extends over the country from the low that's just to the east of Harvey Bay. Now, this low is on the northwest corner of this big high. And again, here is that truism occurring again. We've said time and time again, beware of northwest corners. And sure enough, we talked about the low forming on Friday, still there, and looking pretty nasty. Anyhow, that is extending a trough over New Caledonia. And in addition, there is another trough that starts off at the Solomons. It extends south, and that goes over New Caledonia as well. So basically, expect cloud and rain with the battering from plenty of wind, particularly in our area. We're looking at easterlies 25 knots with periods up to 35 knots, and virtually the same thing tomorrow. Easing a little bit on Wednesday, still mostly easterlies 18 to 20. Not so in the loyalties, though. We're looking at 20 gusting 30 for the loyalties, and that goes through Wednesday. Thursday, easterlies for our area, give or take on that direction, about 20 knots. for the lagoon area. And I've got one other thing. The people that want to go to Oz from New Caledonia. So that is not looking very red hot, as you can guess. New Caledonia is not looking good. And of course, the depression that we have got, that's just to the east of, well, it just covers from Bundy all the way down to Brisbane, just offshore there. That's well wrapped up and not looking very good. It has that active frontal band that's just to the east. That's the one that extends to New Cal. And that's right on the rum line. If you were to be sailing there, you wouldn't be very happy. Maybe there could be a departure on Wednesday or Thursday of this week. Arrival then would be about Monday in Oz, and weather looks decent at that point, but there is a frontal band that may lie en route if you make this trip leaving Wednesday or Thursday. So the trip really may not be any good at all. We'll know a little bit more. We'll take a look again tomorrow and see what happens to this band and how it would affect your passage. So that's the story for going from New Cal to Oz. And again, we'll check that out tomorrow for you. And I think that about covers everything. If you have any questions or comments, come now, and we'll give you a report tomorrow on how things are looking. It would be good to know who is going. We've got some idea on some of the emails that we've gotten, but just to let us know what's happening. And I'll give this over to the boss now, so come now with any questions.
Now, I didn't hear you say anything about the boats that are in Minerva when you think that they would get going. I presume you've covered the weather from there to New Zealand, but is anything to clarify on that one?
No, I think the winds that I gave early on covered the Minerva area as well. So when I gave that period of winds and whatnot, that pretty much covers from 25 south and onward. So if there are direct questions, come now if you're in Minerva, if you're not understanding what I've said.
The reason I thought of Minerva, I'm sure we had an email here from old Celine, and I can't find it, but I know that we didn't respond to that one, and I feel guilty about it. We had a rather busy weekend, and there was a lot of emails came through, and I think that was one that I had to pass on to David for responding to, and I'm not sure that it got through the system. So apologies for that, but I will try and find it.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, though, leaving, well, a lot of you have left, so you're in it. The ones that are thinking about going today, you may want to wait until about Wednesday, possibly Thursday, for the trip.
Is this from Minerva?
These are the Minerva. I'm talking about the Minerva people here. So I'll make sure I cover Minerva specifically tomorrow. I thought I got most of it today, but sounds like I didn't. So we'll give it to you tomorrow. And but I don't think, if you haven't left by now, go fishing today, and we'll give you an update tomorrow.
It is a little bit snotty out there. I suspect there is somebody there, but I'm not picking them up, so I will need a relay. Could I have a relay for the boat that might be calling, please? Nothing heard, so we'll go to Pilgrim, Gulf Harbour. Yeah, there's somebody in the background, I think, Ron, but I will leave it with you to contact Alan on Quintessa and then give me a call when you've got the report. Over. There's a question there too. Boy, and there's no point in going down to 8297 because there's radar down there. So it sounds like we have lost Quintessa. And is there anybody else? David can respond to a question that came in. And just in case others have joined us late, we are now starting on the hour 1900 UTC, whatever that time is with you. It is now 8 o'clock in New Zealand at that time because we're on daylight saving. So we do start on the hour, and if anybody wants to give a report, and I'm usually here before that. David is just going to ask a question that came in concerning the time of good runs. Here he is.
All right, this has been asked before in various ways. So the question says, given that there are the possibility of errors in initial conditions, when is a good time to download the models? We used PredictWind and had thought uploads were ready by 8:30 in the morning and the evening. Okay, first off, I'm going to tell you that when you do receive the global models, try to get the 00 Zulu runs and the 12 Zulu runs. If you're using GFS, because the 06 and the 1800 are using initial conditions that are computer generated, whereas the 00 and the 12 are used, the initial conditions are actual conditions. So those runs are going to be more accurate than the 06 and the 18. Now, when it comes to PredictWind, it beats me. I have no idea what model runs they are using when they produce their product. I don't use them, so I'm just not familiar with what data that they give you. I'm sure somewhere in there they tell you what run they are using, but if they don't tell you, they need to tell you so that you are looking at the most current run, obviously. This happens so many times that I will give information and somebody will call me or email me and say, you know, when you said that, this is what I got, and it was completely different. And when it boils down to it, we find out that they are looking at a different runtime than I am. When I give you the weather, I am trying to get the latest runs that are available. That's why I get up so early, to get the most recent output that I can. So I can't answer the PredictWind part of it, but I can tell you the model runs that you should get. Now, if you're getting ECNWF, that's pretty much done automatically for you, so there should be no problem with that. But what 00 run you're getting from EC on PredictWind, I don't know. I don't know if it's the current one or if it's the one prior to that or whatever. I just don't know. Sorry. You'll have to dig that one out yourself. So there you go.
Okay, we have a bit of a competition in the background there, and I don't think it's for us, but if there is anything else from anyone, you could either just send an email, might be easier, or come now. Okay, nothing heard, and we will be back at 1900 UTC again tomorrow morning. And for those that are going to take this opportunity, you'll be busy sealing up the hatches and capping the doorways. Well, you wouldn't want to cap them until you go in that heat up there, would you? But anyway, make sure the boat is waterproof, and we will be back again tomorrow morning, and we will go out and enjoy this glorious day that we've got here. Cheers, everybody.